All right, John, it has been a weird week.
Yeah. More so on your end than my end.
Well, yeah, I know.
It's been a weird day on my end, though.
Well, yeah, it's been a weird day, too. Our listeners here, I don't know the best way to say this. And, you know, this is not so much a tribute or anything like that, but my father, and I'm Keith of Wheelin' Radio here, of course, and my father passed away this last week. And the circumstances were a little bit odd. And they actually kind of gave us some material for this show. So we promise this isn't going to be too sombering or anything like that. It's going to be a little interesting and you know, some human interest stories here. But you think you're prepared for this, John? You think we can do this? Because you knew my dad pretty well, too.
Yeah, I think we can get it.
All right, let's do this.
It's time to hit the trail, lock in those hubs, and throw it into low range. Because you are listening to Wheelin' with Keith and Johnny Orange, broadcasting from the Thin Line Off-Road Studio. They're here to talk about 4x4s, trucks, and everything to do with enjoying the great outdoors. Buckle up. Here's your hosts, Keith and Johnny Orange.
All right. So, like I said, I'm Keith Kodet of Thin Line Off-Road, and my father, Alan Kodet, passed away quite unexpectedly here this last Sunday, which was the day right after Wheels in the Woods. And, you know, you saw him out at Wheels in the Woods briefly. So did I. At this point, we know that there was no foul play expected. We had originally heard that he had been carjacked and that, you know, he had, you know, carjacking gone wrong. But we now know that it was not the case, and he was actually walking to his car when he suffered what we believe at this point, we don't have the medical report back, but we believe a massive heart attack and just dropped right there. Seemingly painlessly. He was almost 77 years old. He's going to be 77 next week. And the unfortunate and weird part of his death, and the reason we thought it was a carjacking gone bad, is, and we found this out from some security cam footage, was a few moments later, what appears to be like a homeless person or something like that steals his wallet. And then a couple minutes later, somebody takes his car and his keys. And his car has now been recovered in Detroit, and we were able to get the car back. You went with me today. I really appreciate that, John.
Oh, not a problem.
That was as you know, that was a 2-day process getting that car back.
Yeah.
It was a lot of
interesting trip.
Yeah, it was. So you know, you and I talked a lot about it on this run and going and getting Dad's car. And, you know, we were talking about today's podcast, and of course, a lot of people were like, oh, well, you know, take a week off or this or that. But if you knew my father, he was the type of guy where he was always like, he was always like, life goes on, you know,
yeah.
Something bad happens, but you got to muddle through. You got to keep going. Yeah. You got to keep going with it.
Honor and remember, but keep going.
Exactly. And my dad was a heck of a businessman. He had a whole conglomerate of businesses. He had, ABC Home and Commercial Services, Thumbprint News, and the History of the Christmas Tree Walk, Foxfire Farm, also Foxfire Fixins.
Yeah.
A lot of his businesses were sponsors for like Wheels in the Woods. But what a lot of people don't know was he was and I guess we can almost call this museum news because, or museum minutes.
A little bit, yeah.
The museum is housed in a building that he owns. He used to have a different business in it, used to have a feed and seed in it that he closed down a number of years ago, and it sat mostly vacant, as you know. And he ended up donating that space to the museum so we could get the museum started. He was a big believer. He's not a 4x4 guy. He was never a wheeler, nothing like that. But he loved the idea of what we were doing.
Oh, huge supporter of not just the MORA, but the podcast as well, I know.
Yeah, oh yeah, he loved the idea of this podcast. He didn't even know what a podcast was till he started doing this. And then he wanted to do one himself after he found out what we were doing. And I am sad that we're, never going to get him on the podcast. At least if we do, it's going to be, old video or something like that, or old audio from something he did, because he did do a lot of media things himself in the past. But he had donated that space. Him and my mother, they own the building together, and they donated that space. So the museum, it's very easy for me to say that we would not have been opened as quickly as we were with the museum.
Oh, for sure.
If he wouldn't have donated that space to us. And we're going to continue to be in that space. My mother has said, she's totally cool with us being there for now. And the museum, of course, eventually is going to be looking for a permanent home, because it is a smaller building, but we're going to be looking for a bigger building in the future. But
it works for now.
Yeah, it works for now.
Absolutely.
And so he, he was basically, in a way, he was a founding member of the MORA.
Oh, without a doubt.
So
absolutely.
And him and my mom had bought a life. My mom is the one who paid for it, and it's her name. But the lifetime members of the museum in the beginning,
cool.
the Trail Leaders Club, and all that, that's in her name. But they were like, "Hey, we want to support this way." So, and as you know, with Wheels in the Woods, and even going back last year, we did that fundraiser event.
Oh yeah.
At Foxfire Fixins.
That was a long couple of days.
Yeah, well, we did.
I was only there the one day. But.
They did a couple fundraiser events. He did the one where they had the dinner.
Oh yeah,
they donated.
That one.
Yeah, they donated 20% of all food sales that night to the museum, which was really the money that we needed to hire the attorneys and whatnot in the beginning to do all the paperwork for the 501c3.
All the fun technical lawyer stuff.
Well, yeah, but I mean that cost us over $1,000, and they basically raised that money for us.
Yeah, huge. Help,
so
without a doubt.
So that was huge, and then additionally, we did an ice cream social event down there where they donated 100% of the proceeds. We just used the business there, and we went down and we used an old 1920 Fairbanks Morse hit and miss engine.
That is an interesting machine.
And that sits in the museum. That's it.
Yep.
That thing
is seriously cool.
It sits in the museum, and people wonder sometimes when they go through the museum, why do we have this old Fairbanks Morse hit and miss engine down there? And there's a sign on it, and it explains that Fairbanks Morse purchased, and actually right now, just because of the fogginess of everything going on this week, I forget the name of the original company, but they purchased the first company that had produced a gasoline engine for sale anywhere in the world. And this company was a very fledgling company, and they only made a couple of them. Fairbanks Morse prior to that was making steam engines and things like that.
Nice.
They saw the gasoline engine as being the way of the future. They purchased this fledgling company and then immediately put them into production. And so Fairbanks Morse made the first publicly available gasoline engine. I think it was something like 1883 or something like that. It was way back. Yeah, before cars were a thing.
I knew nothing about that part of it.
You'll have to read the sign on it sometime.
For sure.
And Fairbanks Morse is still in business today. They make engines for like ships. They make some of the largest engines in the world. Yeah.
I was unaware of that.
Yeah. So, this is my dad. He's a really cool dude. He like I said, he wasn't a wheeler.
Awesome guy.
I'll tell some stories about him in the future, maybe even later in this episode. We'll see. But John and I got talking about rigs and vehicles. And even in this case, he was driving a 96 Chevy Tahoe. Older vehicle. It was pre-OnStar. And, we got talking about security for vehicles. And we got thinking about like, okay, well, a lot of these wheelers, they have Jeeps and built rigs and things like that. What are they doing to protect not only their valuables in the Jeep or other rig, and what else are they doing to protect the vehicle? Sorry, I had a little bit of burp
it's
there.
all good.
What else are they doing to protect their vehicles, their investment, their hobby vehicles from being stolen? Now, because they can be stolen anywhere. And I know people that have had rigs up north in rural towns, middle of nowhere, that have been stolen.
Oh, geez.
You know,
That's always been a concern of mine, of course, with the Wrangler, with the soft top on it, is how am I going to secure everything in here? I mean, with the doors off, with the top off, flathead screwdriver gets you in almost everything lockable in that.
Unfortunately, I know that's the case. I've known people that have had people take razor knives and things to tops just to get inside of a Jeep,
I've
too.
been very fortunate so far, and I hope to continue to be, of course. But...
Yeah. So, okay, so that's a good question. Have you done any sort of security upgrades to the Wrangler?
Not really. I should. I mean, it's a manual trans. So what's that, like only 18% of the population can drive that anyway?
So it's got the millennial theft device.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that you brought that up because I was going to bring that up. The old millennial theft device. And then, like with Project Excursion and your Wrangler, which is a diesel, both of them have glow plugs.
Yeah.
And in summertime, usually they'll fire up no problem. But wintertime, if you got up and got into one of those and you tried to just start it immediately, just start cranking.
Oh yeah, it won't. You'll burn the cables out.
Yeah, you need to have
I've had to hit the glow plugs 2 or 3 times before to get it just even think about starting.
So just about probably the safest vehicle without any additional security items to have to be stolen is
cold weather diesel.
Yeah, it's a cold weather diesel manual transmission.
Yeah, that's funny.
I like it. So, in my case with Dad here, we wouldn't have believed for a little over 24 hours that foul play was going on if we would have known. Okay, so let's start there. If the vehicle would have had something such as OnStar or some sort of modern device, what devices are you aware of, John, that somebody can put into a vehicle to track the vehicle? Because if we would have known where that vehicle was, it probably would have been able to be recovered much sooner than it was, and we would have had more answers to what was going on.
So, I mean, of course, the old school LoJack. And I know that's still
Is that still a company, LoJack?
As far as I'm aware, yeah. I know
producer Andrew's nodding over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
We tried to get him to talk on this episode, but he shut us down.
Well, we're like, hey, this is his thing. It's technology stuff, which I don't know a ton about. I'm gonna talk some of the old school security things, but So
LoJack is the big one. Of course, OnStar, like you mentioned.
Okay.
I believe
Ford has their own too, don't they?
That's where I was going.
Uconnect, I think.
Yeah. There's a couple other companies that make modules similar to the OnStar systems that plug in. Like a lot of the modules are a replacement rear view mirror that you power in and you're good to go.
There's that, and something else and here's the irony of this. My dad owns this fleet of vehicles through his pest control company, and he has in all of his fleet vehicles, he has TomTom GPSs.
Yeah.
These are commercial grade TomTom GPSs that look like any other GPS you would have, but they're constantly pinging back the location of the vehicle.
Yeah, there's a number of modules like that, like a prior place of employment. I'll hold off on the name because it's a pretty big chain.
Arby's?
No.
Oh, okay.
But similar color in the logo.
Oh, okay.
An auto parts place.
Oh,
just
okay.
Call it
all
that.
right.
And they since I left, they now have trackers in the vehicles. Just plugs into your OBD scanner port, and it reports all of that information back to the company.
Yeah, and that was something when we first got those. I wasn't even aware they had that technology, at least available at a smaller scale for very reasonable prices.
Yeah, there's a lot of insurance companies that have them. Plugs in, you're based on your stopping and your acceleration. Helps to lower your insurance rates and stuff. But that's another form, another way to track it.
Well, what's funny about those is when he first got those, and he had those for a long time. I was working for him back in the day when he first got those. And I'm driving down the road one day, and it was probably 3 or 4 months after we had gotten them in the vehicle. And I get a call from the basically the guy who ran all of the scheduling in the shop there. And he calls me up and he's like, "Slow down." And I says, "Slow down? What do you mean slow down?" And he says, "I'm looking at the computer right now, and you are doing 62 and a 50." And I says, "What? How do you know that?" And he's like, "That GPS on your dashboard." Now, mind you, I knew they tracked the location, but I didn't know they did the speed and all that too.
Awesome.
And he's like, "Yeah, you're doing 12 over and a 50." And he goes, "You're coming up to an area where there's some schools and stuff." And I said, "Oh, okay. Oh, yep, good. All right, I'll slow down."
Yeah.
And
that's funny.
And so I knew that they do that. His vehicles still have those in them. And years ago, What's kind of weird is his guys were sitting outside like a party store or whatever, and somebody reached in and stole one of those GPS units. And it took about 2 months to recover it because they kept turning it on and off. But eventually the police went up to the door of somebody's house and they're like, hey, yeah, and it was still on.
That's
and they're
awesome.
like, this doesn't belong to you. And of course the guy's like, oh, I bought it on Craigslist or something like that,
Right.
Exactly. And we got it back. But they're a couple $100.
That's funny.
But they're not thousands of dollars.
No. You can get a lot of relatively cheap stuff like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of phones or a lot of vehicles will have an integrated phone. Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, it's an extra monthly service.
Yeah.
But you can track them through that if your phone's paired to it. But of course, that provides the phone still in the vehicle.
Yeah.
And that presents its own set of challenges too, of course, as you know.
It does.
So
I guess the next set of security that we would maybe talk about, unless you have anything else for the tracking aspect of things.
not that I can think of off the top of my head. I think we glossed over most of those.
Okay, and there's different options. People could look at that and see.
I'm sure there's tons of stuff we're not aware of either.
Yeah, well, basically what I'm saying is just even a few years ago, I wasn't aware that an old vehicle, you could put something in to show the location of it still.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you don't have to go buy a brand new vehicle with OnStar or Uconnect or anything like that.
Any vehicle in existence, you can buy an OnStar module to put in it now.
Oh, it's an actual OnStar from GM?
Yeah, it's no longer, it's licensed outside of GM-only vehicles.
Really?
So you can, I don't remember where, but I've seen them. I know you can purchase them. You can probably get it on Amazon or eBay even.
Uh-huh.
It's just, it replaces your rear view mirror. You have a couple wires to wire in, and boom, you got OnStar. Plus
Weird.
whatever monthly subscription thing they do. I'm not familiar enough with the system to know that.
Okay.
But yeah, you can get, an OnStar module for your, 38 Ford Roadster or whatever.
Huh.
Any custom
They
built.
stopped
Ed
making the
your
Roadster
Sandero.
for Fords in 37.
All right, a 37.
You didn't think I'd know that, did you?
I don't know. I was just pulling a number out.
Last year for the 37 or the Road.
Ed even could get one for that Sandrail we talked about last week.
Yeah.
If he really wanted to.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
I mean, you can get those for anything, which is cool not only from a safety feature, but all the features and benefits that OnStar does offer. It's very cool.
Okay. Yeah, that is really neat to be able to have that.
Oh, yeah.
And then I guess as a second level of security, something that I became familiar with years ago. Now, for a rig that you're only using like out in the woods or something like that, something as simple as an underhood battery disconnect.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty big to have. But there are other systems that you can buy, and I've had a couple of vehicles years ago with this that had you basically ran a battery cable from the battery up under the dashboard, and you had a toggle type key that you could remove that would then kill the battery. But then you could do wires to the other side of it, so you could still keep say the memory in your radio.
Yeah.
But it would kill the
ignition wires.
The ignition wires and everything.
A friend of our family's bought a used truck like that, and it took him. He got it home. Mm-hmm. Took him about a week to figure out what was going on with it. He finally called the guy. After a lot of laughter, he explained, well, you got to flip this switch under the dash, pop open the cigar lighter box, the ashtray, and there's a push button you have to push while you're turning the key.
Okay.
So it had multiple fail-safes to prevent theft.
Right. Well, I've got something on one of my antique cars, and it's was never designed to be a fail-safe, but it has a older V8 engine with an HEI distributor on it. Nice. And the original wiring of the car, for whatever reason, I think it was too small of a gauge or whatever. It's been so many years since I did this, but it couldn't handle going through the regular ignition without rewiring everything. So I have a toggle switch under the dashboard that only goes to the ignition. So if you turn the key, so if you add the keys, it'll crank and crank and crank and crank. It won't do anything until you put a toggle switch.
I like that.
And so a simple ignition for a gasoline engine, ignition toggle switch helps.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But there's a few other options that you can do to do that, but basically some sort of ignition kill.
Yeah. Or in the case of a diesel, a shut-off valve switch.
True. Those are well.
Yeah.
So I think we've covered those pretty good. When we come back, let's talk about more of the cargo security things that you can do for a vehicle.
Good. All right. See you in a bit.
Hey, it sounds like it's time to swap out that old engine for something better, John.
Yeah, man, but I have so much into my trans and transfer case set up already. I don't want to change those too.
Sounds like you need to call Quick Draw Brand Adapters. They specialize in conversion bell housings for nearly all diesel and gasoline engines, including the new 2.8R Cummins.
You know, I like weird engines though. I want something different.
Then you definitely need to visit QuickDrawBrand.com today. They have those hard-to-find parts. They also have used diesel engines available. You can call them at 513-446-9654.
Cool, I'll do that. See what they have. Thanks.
Okay, so before the break, we were talking about various ignition kill devices, and then during the break, producer Andrew brought up a couple of points. And so before we move on to some of the security and storage things that we said we were going to talk about, which we will get to that, there were some other things. And John, he was saying something about how some vehicles, like credit building places, will have something that'll kill your ignition if you don't make your payment and things like that?
Yeah. So basically, like the example we were given, if you miss a payment, you know, say Tuesday your payment's due, you miss it. Wednesday they activate the device, it prevents you from starting your vehicle.
Okay, well, you know, they have that technology as well through OnStar and Uconnect and some of the other ones where it can kill the ignition. So in our case, like with Dad, we knew the vehicle had been taken potentially down to Ohio and back. We don't know for sure, but we could have called the police and said if we had something in there like that, we could have said kill the ignition. Boom, click.
Absolutely.
Now, does that mean we would have caught the perpetrators? Maybe not. They would have just got out and ran away. But at the same point, you know, it would have stopped the vehicle.
Yeah.
So, you know, ignition kill devices that can also be operated wirelessly, not such a bad thing. And I think there's things, I've actually read there's things you can do through an app on your phone where you don't have to call the police to do it. If it's your own vehicle, you can kill your own ignition, but it would have to be...
I could see it, but I'm not familiar with that at all.
Yeah, I remember reading something about it, but I don't remember for sure.
With how electronically connected all these cars are nowadays, I could see it.
Yeah, and there was something else. Wasn't there something else we were talking about with the ignitions?
Just in general, ignition kill switches.
Okay.
You know, again, like the hidden switch, you turn this on, now you can start it kind of thing.
Okay. Before we get into talking about the, you know, more of the storage type things that we were talking about, we do need to get into our Wheelin' News section that we do.
Right.
And, you know, I guess let's just start it off. Project XJ updates. What do you got going on with that?
Well, I'm just about done under the hood. So I ran into an issue with some counterfeit injectors that I unintentionally ordered. I was not happy.
Yeah.
I'll say that politely.
Now, was the indicator when they came in a Hello Kitty box?
It was. The packaging was a big indicator. They're supposed to be remanufactured. It came in a box that implied they were new, high performance, which prompted some Google searching. Turns out the brand name on that box is a known counterfeiter.
Did they spell performance wrong?
No. No, it's just...
Right.
When I'm ordering used injectors, I don't expect to see high-performance injectors on a box.
Yeah, well, can't be ordering your injectors for your Jeep off of Wish.
No. Nothing like that.
Oh, okay.
So the biggest giveaway, and something to look, so they're Bosch fuel injectors. All Bosch injectors, right by one of the two part numbers on there, have a little embossed icon to prove they're genuine. These did not have that. So I contacted the seller. Thankfully, you know, everything worked out. I got the refund. They sent me a label to send them back.
Okay.
I have since ordered the correct ones, which were genuine.
Different seller.
Good deal. Yep, $5 more.
Yeah.
Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
So I got those installed. I've got everything but the brake master cylinder in, which I'm going to do when I do the brake lines. I did get the coolant jug in. Had to remove the vacuum can, which looked so nice where it was, but I mean, it made it look a lot better this way.
Okay.
But yeah, everything under the hood is done now.
Sweet.
So yeah, I have to decide which grill to use.
All right.
Which maybe that's a question I can ask everybody. If they'd like to put input out on this, respond on 4x4 Talk on Facebook. I'm debating between using the early style grill, so like the 91 to 96, or the 97 up.
I think you need to run either one of those angry grills or one of the the faces that would change it over to like the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile.
If somebody were to supply that kit, I'd probably just do it because it'd be hilarious.
All right.
I don't think they make the Angry Grill for the Cherokees, though.
So
But I'll look. I'll see what I can find.
So Elson 4x4 talk. We had last week. We had that awesome episode where we did all the interviews.
Which again, huge thank you and shout out to producer Andrew for all the countless hours of editing on that one.
Oh my God, it sounded so awesome,
job,
didn't
sir.
it?
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Absolutely
just
incredible.
listened to it. So
I was listening last night in the garage, and awesome episode.
really
I
like
didn't even think it was us.
Yeah, no, your interviewing skills, John, are fantastic.
thank
We
you.
need to have you do
Thank
more
you.
of those.
I'm for it.
So we definitely need to do that. At Wheels in the Woods, I think we had mentioned, we kind of glossed over some of our sponsors and what they do and what they did for us. As was mentioned before, Thumbprint News, ABC Home and Commercial Services, and the Foxfire Fixins restaurant are all owned by my folks, Alan, Diane, Kodet. They own all of those.
As well as the property we hosted the event
As well
on.
as the property that we hosted the event on. So big supporters there. Thumbprint News is a Michigan thumb paper that is free. You can also pay to have it delivered out of the area if you'd like by mail. It covers local history and things like that.
A lot of local city and county news.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of cool informative articles too. I know you've written for it, and I've read it a few times, different articles in there, and there's some cool stuff in there.
It is. ABC Home and Commercial Services, they've got a whole group of businesses under that, or at least divisions. They have pest
Huge
control
umbrella of
and
companies.
porta potties, which they donated to Wheels in the Woods, which was awesome. A number of different things. Septic, it goes on, all sorts of different things there. And then they have, of course, Foxfire Fixins Restaurant, which is kind of that local redneck barbecue type of restaurant. You've eaten there, I've eaten there, good food.
And they actually did a special menu for us at Wheels in the Woods that we could order from, which was awesome.
Yeah, that was cool. They delivered it out to us.
Yeah, that was even cooler.
Dad did the second delivery, which was really cool. I think that was the last time you saw him.
It was. He was leaving and I waved goodbye, so it was...
Yeah, he walked around and saw his people, and that was it.
At least got to see him.
Actually, at the museum, the next day, Sunday, and it's only be a couple hours before his passing, he called me up at the museum, which is pretty rare.
Mm-hmm.
He calls me up and he says, "Hey, I'm going by the restaurant right now. Would you like me to bring you breakfast?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, I was actually been craving their biscuits and gravy, which are like one of my favorite breakfast things they do there. Just
I'll have to
awesome.
try that out sometime.
Oh, they're so good, man.
I'm a sucker for that breakfast burrito.
Oh, that is pretty good too. So, and producer Anders is nodding down there too. So he calls me up and he says, "Yeah, I'll do that." So he comes down, and my dad and I have always had a great relationship, but 9 times out of 10 our conversations, we end up arguing about politics or business or something like that, and that's just what we do. We're those type of guys.
Yeah.
But he came down and he was just telling me about all his dreams about the Christmas walk and the Christmas walk event, which I want to cover more in a future episode a little bit. Mm-hmm. He was telling me about all that, and then he was just like, "Here's your breakfast," and we were eating breakfast together. He checked out the new Willie's at the museum, and then which he loved, and then he took off, and that was the last time I saw him. So it was kind of cool to have that last moment, So it was neat. But moving on from Dad, moving on from his businesses, we also
we had a
had
few other sponsors.
Yeah, of course. We had Quick Draw Brand, who donated the Cummins Bell housing.
Yep.
That thing, Ed won, which
Yep.
was on the last episode. That was great.
Oh yeah. And he'll do something cool with it. I know that for sure.
I'm really looking for that. Quick Draw, we've talked about them enough that I don't need to go through their whole product line right now, but
We did a whole episode and interview with Chad of there.
Yeah, we did.
So if that's something anyone would like to learn more about, I don't remember the
episode 11.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, go back and listen to that.
Oh yeah.
He go to their website, quickdrawbrand.com.
And he's on Facebook too.
Yeah, lots and lots of cool products on there.
Oh yeah.
We also had MSC Floors and MSC Electrical, which are two different companies under the same header. So they're both MSC, Michigan Specialty Coatings.
I know they sponsored a few of the prizes for us too, which were awesome.
Yeah, they did. They had a couple Yeti mugs. They had donated some things to the raffle. They had done just some various cool things for the event.
Oh yeah.
MSC, which you may not know, when MSC was starting up, and this is, I don't know, 10 years, maybe 15 years ago, a long time ago.
It's almost before I knew you.
One of the first jobs that they had was to go into what is now the museum building, because it used to be a fiberglass plant, and it had these big mounds of fiberglass everywhere. And they brought in their floor grinding machines and ground it all, because there was like 2-foot mounds of fiberglass, and they chipped it out and ground it out, and they were in there for like 2 days doing this.
Jeez.
And so, yeah, MSC has actually been in the museum before, and they did a great job grinding those floors. I mean, it looks like just clean concrete now.
Yeah. And I never would have guessed.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I'll have to show you. Dad had the picture somewhere back at the shop. I'll show you sometime. It was crazy, man.
I believe it.
So MSC, they do. I've seen also the coatings that they do. I hope I'm allowed to say this, but of another museum.
If not, we'll edit it out.
Yeah, another museum that I believe they did a lot of work for was the Henry Ford Museum.
Oh, cool.
And they did just fantastic work there. Through the museum, we know who is running the Henry Ford Museum, the gentleman over there. And he said, we talked to him a while ago, and he said it was just beautiful. It was great work.
Nice.
So
I haven't been there since a grade school field trip.
Well, I mean, yeah, but here's what you have to keep in mind about a company like this. You hear the words museum quality.
Yeah.
Museums demand the highest level of quality workmanship when they put their museums together.
Yeah.
MSC does museum quality work.
That's awesome.
And so, if you're a business, they don't do a lot of residential because the cost can be a little expensive to do a small area. But if you are a business and you're looking for museum quality flooring coatings, you definitely need to call MSC. Yeah. And then they now have their electrical division as well. I'm not as familiar with the electrical division, but I'm going to tell you right now, by looking at the quality of the floor work they do, I'm going to believe that their electrical is just the top quality as well.
I wonder how much they charge me to hook up 220 in my basement. I'll run it.
You can talk to producer Andrew. Maybe he can, get a favor or something.
We'll
there you go, or somebody, But yeah, it was just it's great that they sponsored the event.
Absolutely.
We also had the Roots Beauty Bar. Is that what it's called? Roots.
I believe so.
Yeah. I keep saying Roots Beauty Salon, but it's Roots Beauty Bar out of St. Clair, Michigan. And
wait, so they do hair and have a bar?
I don't know. We need to find this out. I have no hair. How would I know this?
You're right.
You have hair, though. We need to figure this out, John. Maybe I need to grow hair.
Most of those places kick me out.
So they were
scissors.
They were actually our very first sponsor for our raffle.
I did not know that. Very cool.
They are the ones that beyond producer Andrew saying we needed to do a raffle, they had approached us and said, "Hey, your event sounds really cool. You're doing this family stuff." And her name's Lindsay that owns it. And she said, "We would love to be involved in your raffle." And I said, "Well, we don't have a raffle." And she says, "Well, you need to have a raffle." And she said, "Well, I'd like to donate a Yeti cooler." So a $200 Yeti cooler, she donated for that.
Very cool.
I know a couple ladies that have gone up there. I don't know a lot about them. Obviously, I am a shaved head, bald dude, so I can't speak.
You are not their target market.
I am not their target market. No, not at all.
Unless you, for some reason, have an obscene amount of back hair or something.
I do. I don't think they want to see that, though.
That explains the Yeti part.
Yeah, I like it. So Roots Beauty Bar was another one of our sponsors, and I just really appreciate what they did. I think we covered all the sponsors, didn't we?
Mr. Kodet's hardware store. I know he was on the list.
Oh my God, how can I forget my own brother?
Sibling rivalry, I get it.
Yeah. Kodet's True Value Hardware. Now, you recognize the name. My name's Keith Kodet as well. And, of course, Mr. Jeff Kodet is my brother, and he just lost his father as well. But Mr. Jeff Kodet owns the True Value Hardware in Livonia, Michigan, in Williamston, Michigan, and in Fowlerville, Michigan. Now, he has these hardware stores that he has there are your good old-fashioned hardware store, and it's not like your big box stores. You go in and you can find that stuff pretty quickly, pretty easily. He specializes in paint, and he also specializes in a lot of fasteners and things like that. And his prices
do a lot of paint tinting.
Yeah, oh yeah. And
excellent.
When I went in, I was so impressed with, I think it was the Williamston location the first time when I went in there, and I'm looking at his wall of stainless hardware, like stainless automotive hardware. Ooh. And I'm looking at it and I'm looking at the prices, and like his prices were somewhat cheaper than I was even finding online and stuff.
Really?
And the same thing on some of his power tools. Like he had Porter Cable and some other brands. Mm-hmm. Kodet's True Value Hardware, you know, my brother there, he really has a lot of that. Now Jeff is an ex-firefighter himself and ex-police officer, and he's a big supporter of first responders. Yeah. And he knows that, you know, we kind of are as well, and he loves community event type of things. And when he found out we were doing Wheels in the Woods, he said, well, hey, he goes, you know, let me help buy a bunch of the awards and things like that. So he paid for a bunch of the awards and the plaques, actually pretty much covered the cost of that. MSC did as well. Mm-hmm. In fact, I can say that honestly, that MSC and Kodet's True Value pretty much split down the middle, and they paid for all the awards for the event. We didn't have to pay out of pocket at all from the museum.
That's awesome. Huge help.
So, you know, brother Jeff, absolutely love what you did. Thank you so much.
Yeah, really. I'm going to be probably visiting one of your locations one of these days.
You and I got to drive over someday. In fact,
I'm totally for it, but let me get some money in the bank first.
I think it's his Fowlerville location, has like an 1890 hand crank elevator.
Dude,
it is so fun to go up and down. You and I got to go over there. It's so cool to see.
I'm so for it.
Yeah, they're the old building with like the wood floors, and then you go up. It's like a rope elevator. So
awesome.
Am I missing any sponsors?
One. The most important sponsor.
You?
Us.
Oh, Wheelan.
We don't count.
Yeah, we did not get, Wheelan does not have any money. I wish we had money, but
we sponsored time and labor.
We put a lot of time and labor into it. So
again, we're kind of part of the board, so I don't think it really counts.
Yeah, you got to know who we are. So, so that was it. So, 4x4 News. That was a long segment there, but we wanted to cover those sponsors. We wanted to give a huge shout out to all of them. I know that ended up going a little bit longer than it probably should have, but
we paid fair due to all those who helped us out with it.
And so honestly,
huge thank you and shout out to all of you guys.
Thank you so much, really.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, these are not huge corporate sponsors. These are all small mom and pop operations. Yeah. And I believe in shopping local, and Absolutely. I believe in shopping with these places that are not huge corporations. And nothing wrong with huge corporations, but these small local places that do
keeps the community alive.
Yeah, top quality work.
Yeah.
If you live in Southeast Michigan, I believe, and producer Andrew can kind of nod at me, I believe MSC at least travels at least to several state regions, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, 5 or 6 states. So if you're in kind of like the northern Michigan, North Midwest area, and you're a commercial, you need to talk to MSC. Kodet's True Value, obviously local. The other ones are local, but Wheelan, we're worldwide. I just heard Andrew was reading off the countries to us. And I don't know how many countries we're in. Something like 18, 15. I don't know. A lot. He's over there just like...
a lot more than we realized.
A lot more than we realized. In fact, okay, real quick on that before we go to break, I did hear that we have like 5 or 6 listeners in Afghanistan, which I'm going to bet are probably service members.
I hope so. And if you guys are listening, give us a shout out.
If you can.
Yeah. And, let us know with what information you can, where you are, what what's going on, and we'll give you guys a shout out.
I don't think they can give us too much information about
nothing like that, but let us know, where you're from, what platoon or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
I apologize. I don't know all the proper terminology.
Which branch of the military. Yeah, let us know.
Oh, for sure.
Speaking of shout outs, let's do that before we go to break. One last thing. We have a $10 Patreon sponsor. Our first Patreon sponsor that is at that level.
Excellent.
And you had the name for me?
Mr. Patrick Rowe.
Patrick Rowe. So, Patrick Rowe, thank you so much for being a sponsor. Essentially, your donation, I guess is what you would call it, or your sponsorship through Patreon is going to help us to continue the show through equipment upgrades and things like that. So, we really, really appreciate what you're doing.
Yes, thank you, sir.
So, John, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I promise we are going to talk about some storage solutions and some security for your rig.
Sounds good to me.
Have you heard the good news? Now there's a local paper that people just can't seem to get enough of. It's the Thumbprint News. The Thumbprint News is free and full of interesting stories that focus on what's important in our lives. Stories that touch on this area's rich history, unique places, and the diverse cultures and people. You'll be in the know when you read the Thumbprint News. Go to thumbprintnews.com and read the paper online for free today.
Welcome back to Wheelin' with Keith and Johnny Orange. Today we have been talking about vehicle security systems, among other things. And I know at this point we're going to talk about securing valuables in your vehicle.
Yeah, that's right, John. I guess one of the first things for Jeep guys, and weirdly enough, in my Toyota Land Cruiser, and I'll explain to you the background of this one in a minute, but the open-top Jeeps and open-top Land Cruisers and Suzuki Samurais, a lot of times are very susceptible to theft of items that are inside the vehicle. Now, we're not talking theft of the vehicle. We kind of already covered some ignition killing devices. Let me mention one more thing so we can wrap that up. I don't remember the brand or the name, and there might be more than one, but I thought it was pretty cool. I saw this at a hot rod car show years ago. Mm-hmm. There is a device that you can buy that every time you take the key out, not the key in the ignition of your vehicle, but this other key that was like tied into this device.
It's called a dongle.
Okay.
That's the word.
Weirdo. It would...
it's in a little electronic device?
Something like that. Yeah. I think it was just a lock. I think it was just a key. But it would lock hydraulically your brake system.
Oh, that's interesting.
All 4 wheels and tires. Huh. So what would happen is if somebody managed to get... And it was a double lock thing, so it did kill the ignition too. But if somebody managed to hotwire the engine, the vehicle wouldn't go anywhere.
Nice. I know one all-popular anti-theft device we've been forgetting about before we actually get to, valuables in the vehicle.
Okay.
And I can't believe we've forgotten about it till now.
What's that?
The club.
Oh, my God, John.
They're still around.
I know.
Prior named auto parts company I used to work for.
They still sell those things?
They still sell them, and all of the parts delivery vehicles are locked up with one every night.
I had one years ago, and I used one, kind of. Mm-hmm. I bought one at a garage sale that was missing the key.
Why?
I punched for like $1 or $2.
Oh, okay.
I punched the lock out of it, and I could slide it up and down, and I would take it in my truck when I went down to Detroit for school because I went to Wayne State.
Oh,
and I would just slide it up. And so if you looked in the window, the club was on it, but nobody knew that they really didn't have a key for it. So, you could just physically hand, but...
That's genius.
It was just... it just took in... And actually, that same vehicle, that I had a Ford Ranger pickup truck I was driving that I would put it in. Twice they broke into it with a crowbar. It's like, why'd you smash the window, man? But twice it must have been the same thief. They crowbarred the driver's side door open, and the second time they messed it up so bad I had to replace the door.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God. So, anyways, back to consoles and stuff. So we got all these different consoles. It's not just one brand. There's a lot of different ones. There's Rugged Ridge. There's
Tuffy's probably the biggest name when it comes to lockable, secure storage in a vehicle.
Tuffy, yeah. And then none of these are sponsors, but
no.
You can buy these metal box lockable consoles that will replace your factory console, or if you don't even have a console, it'll put one in it.
Yeah, there's some very cool and unique designs of those for sure. I've thought a few times about getting them.
Now, I got one. I have a... It's not a Tuffy, I don't think. I think it's a Rugged Ridge. But a Tuffy would work too. And I'm going to tell you why. I discovered something, and I don't want to give myself all the credit to the discovery here, because I think I read somebody online that had said, I did some measurement and I think this will work, but they hadn't tried it yet. So I decided to take the gamble and see if it would work. A Tuffy / Rugged Ridge security console for a Jeep YJ Wrangler is the exact same dimensions you need to put in a 60 series Land Cruiser.
Nice.
So because Tuffy, I think, makes one. It's really, really expensive for the 60 series Land Cruiser.
A few other products are pricey.
And so I think I bought a Rugged Ridge, which is a little cheaper.
Yeah.
And this thing slid perfectly into the space between the seats in my Land Cruiser. Huh. And all I had to do was drill like 2 or 4 holes through the floor and put these big bolts through the floor.
Nice.
And it's got a locking thing. I mean, you could put all your important things in there. Like I know some people maybe carry a handgun or whatever, but me, I could put in like a nice cheese I bought or some candy bars, things I don't want people stealing,
Tired of people stealing your Mars bars, eh?
My Mars bar, my Skittles,
Oh,
I don't.
that's the worst.
My Reese's Pieces,
Yeah.
I can put them in there. And actually, you know what I carry in there? Like 99% of the time is an air gauge and a roll of toilet paper. But
you got to have the essentials. You never know.
I think, pardon me, I think I have my winch controller and a set of gloves in there, and that's about it. But
nice.
So
you mentioned quick note. Firearm.
Sure.
So you're talking about proper vehicle storage. That depending what you're carrying, firearm in particular, you want to make sure that it's something that is solidly secure, something that's mounted. Not necessarily to the frame, but through the floor, something to make sure it's difficult for any potential, thief to take.
And that's interesting that you mentioned that because my Ford Excursion, the Project Ford Excursion, you asked me today when we were down in one of the more interesting areas of Detroit.
Yes.
And you said, "Hey, does your glove box lock?" And I'm like, I don't know. And we looked over, there's not even a lock on it. So now the vehicle locks, of course, but there really is not a good place to store something like that.
You look the TJ Wranglers. So my particular one had the sound system subwoofer in the center console. Mm-hmm. It locks.
Okay.
If you push it back a little bit, it pops open, even if it's locked.
That's no good. You do need a steel
secure.
like under seat or console.
Yeah, steel lockbox. There's a lot of companies, again, using firearms as an example. Not necessarily if you have a firearm you're carrying, but a Rolex or something, or you're transporting maybe copious amounts of gold bullion somewhere.
There you go.
You want an actual safe.
Now, something I figured out before, which is not only fairly securable, but it's also waterproof. Suzuki Samurai, and I want to say it's a 50 caliber can, but the old military ammo can.
Yeah.
They're tall and narrow. There's a size of them.
Probably the 30 cal.
It could be. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a size of them that works perfectly for a console in a Suzuki Samurai. Huh. And I've had a number of Samurais. I've done 2 of them now where I've put that military ammo can in there. Now, they're not locking, but
you can actually get locks for them.
You can get locks for them, or I think one of them I put a barn door latch on with a padlock.
Nice.
It's just a cheap, I'm saying if you're really on a budget,
oh, yeah.
it's not a bad way to do it.
Down to your local military surplus, visit your hardware store. Some grade 8 nuts, bolts, washers, padlock, you're done.
Now, for the back of the vehicle, like especially an open-top vehicle or a Jeep or an SUV, you can get those locking drawer systems.
Yeah.
That'll slide out.
So, again, to use Wrangler as an example,
Sure.
the TJs, I don't know, I'm not familiar if other models have them. So it bolts from the inside out, and it does give you a lockable storage compartment between the tailgate and the back seat.
Sure.
Now, I have one. I actually removed mine because I had a bit of a water issue. Problem story for another day.
All right.
But and again, though, it's just plastic. Somebody really wants it, they're going to get there. So to look into something proper, like a lockable drawer, that's your far better option. It's a deterrent.
Now, something I learned about the lockable drawer systems, and they are getting a lot better. When they first started to get fairly popular, I bought, and I don't remember the brand, they might not even be in business anymore, but I bought 2 lockable drawer systems, and it was a weird deal because I was looking at a specific brand for sale that I really, really liked. And I was reading the specs on it, and this was in my GMC S15 Jimmy. And this was a tall, narrow drawer system that would go up against the inner fender well on the inside. So I wanted to be able to put that in there so I could still use the middle for space and have like the full headroom. So I was looking for one, and I had found it, and I really liked it. And there was a guy I had messaged that had one for like 30% of what the MSRP was for sale used.
Nice.
And I said, and it was back then, it probably was like through a forum. I don't think it was through Facebook or anything. In fact, I know it wasn't through Facebook. I wasn't even on there back then. But I found it, and we were talking back and forth, and the guy was hemming and hawing, and it was a weird, one of those weird kind of like Craigslist meetup type things, and it was
Had
just
those.
Yeah, I know you have. Maybe after show or something.
Yeah.
And he was, in hem and haw. And finally, I just said, I need this thing for this trip I'm going to. So I went and bought a brand new one because he never came through.
Yeah.
And so I bought a brand new one, and I bought the one that was just black steel on the outside. And his was the polished diamond plate, or the polished aluminum diamond plate cover.
Yeah.
Well, literally, I think mine was in the mail. It was on its way to me. I had already paid for it. And he contacted me and was like, well, if you'll pay this much today, blah, 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 and you can meet me here, I'll take it. So I said, screw it, and I bought it. So now I had two of them, and they were right next to each other. One was diamond plate, one was black. But they were the same internally. Something I learned, though, was that the two things. The slider drawer system had no sort of rubber snubbers or anything in it, so they were so loud.
Yeah.
Going down the road, I would hear.
Oh, that's annoying.
And the
I got
drawers.
broken springs on my Jeep that make all that noise.
Nice.
Under the seats.
The
Yeah,
drawers
annoying.
didn't go all the way to the back of the cases. There was like a 2-inch gap. Things would jump off the back of the drawers.
Oh, that's irritating.
And they weren't tall enough that they weren't in the bottom.
Oh.
So what would happen is things would get jammed in there. I ended up pulling both of them out of the Jimmy within 3 months and selling both of them because I was like, these are garbage.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at something, look at the quality of the drawers and then think, how easily can, say, a hammer or something get stuck in the back of this?
And
if
a lot
it
of that,
can,
again,
don't use
determines
it.
what you're carrying as far as how to properly secure what you're normally going to have there.
True, but I don't want to have to like bungee cord stuff inside my toolbox.
No, absolutely.
I want stuff inside my toolbox to sit there
Yeah.
and not have to bounce out. And these were junk.
Yeah, that's disappointing.
And like I said, I don't remember who the manufacturer was. I think they were a pretty big manufacturer, but I tossed them.
Nothing more disappointing than buying something like that than finding out it's not as advertised.
Like your Hello Kitty injectors.
We're in Hello Kitty.
yeah. All right. So yeah, there's those type of security systems. And then, and there's really, you couldn't, I don't think in one episode you could even cover all the options for pickup truck where you could put like a cap on with the locking,
You've got that. You've got the lockable toolboxes.
Exactly.
You got metal. You got plastic. You got the big drawer systems, small drawer systems.
Let's touch briefly on truck toolboxes though. I have had plastic truck toolboxes. I have had aluminum ones. I've had steel ones. Something I learned a long time ago about the plastic ones is with time, they tend to warp with heat and age.
And get brittle.
And you can pop them open really easily.
Yep.
I would never recommend it to put valuable tools in a plastic truck toolbox. If you're going to have a quality truck toolbox, go with aluminum, go with steel. You're going to be a lot happier having that in your box. But something I learned, and this is something I learned a long time ago from a guy on a job site, a lot of those truck toolboxes come with a bolting system that basically goes from the inside of the toolbox, then it goes to like what you would essentially call a J-hook that goes under the bed rail, and it secures it there. And then you got this great locking box that nobody can get into easily. The problem is most thieves of tools and toolboxes know that if you take a long rod like a crowbar and you pop it between the box and the bed rail, the J-hooks pop out really easily, and you can take that entire toolbox. So if you got another pickup truck sitting there, in less than 10 seconds, you can pop the J-hooks on the one side. You can throw this thing in the back of your pickup truck. So if you're going to put a truck toolbox in the back of your truck, always consider drilling through the top of your bed rails and nut and bolting it.
And properly sealing, of course. You don't want to rust out the bed.
Sure. Proper sealing it. Yes, you're going to have a couple holes in your bed rail, but ones
you're going to be much more secure in what you're storing.
Yeah, because it's a crowbar can pop those suckers out so quick. I talked to a guy on a job site years ago that had like something like $5,000 in tools in the back of one of those things, and the whole toolbox went missing. Literally, I think he said he went in somewhere for gas, came out, and his whole toolbox was gone. So
that sucks.
Yeah, just that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah,
look at how these things mount and how these things secure. The box itself is useless if it's not securely mounted to your vehicle.
Absolutely. You're just making it more convenient and easier for them to take everything.
Exactly. John, what else you want to talk about security? There's got to be something we're missing here.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
if folks, if you say you've got a story about security, or you say, hey, this is the way I do things, hey, okay, here's a funny one.
Anyone's got a good idea.
Here's a funny one. Now, this is not normally how you would do things, but it works. This is one of those making it work things. Years and years and years and years ago, I'm dating myself here, I drove a 1964 Chevrolet panel truck as my daily driver.
Nice.
Okay. It had those old pull handle door handles. Mm-hmm. I only had an ignition key. I was never given the door keys for this thing. I never had door keys for it. So everywhere I went, the doors were always open. The back was always open. But I didn't carry that much valuable stuff. I might have had some camping gear in it, some carpentry supplies. Nothing like, at any given time, there was probably less than $500 worth of junk in this thing. And it looked like something out of a horror movie, so most people weren't going to rob it anyways because they figured I'd rob them back or whatever. But we took this thing to go camping up north. And we were going to leave it for almost a week in this like desolate area with this parking space. And I was like, man, I can't do that because somebody could get into it easy. They could mess things up, whatever. I took with me like a 40-foot chain, ran it around the whole vehicle through every door handle, and put a padlock on it.
I love it. That's awesome.
I can only imagine what people thought when they went up to looked at that thing, like, because I went right through the front door, back around the back two doors, over to the other door on the passenger side.
That's awesome.
But you do what you got to do.
Oh, yeah. You use what resources you have available to get the job done.
And, if you looked at job sites, a lot of times equipment is as simple as a chain from the steering wheel to the floor or to something solid.
Or, hanging those nice torch sets on a, what do they call the thing, a crane?
Yeah, hanging one in the air. Yeah.
And a big bobcat welder.
But, we don't have a crane to take with us, but even a piece of chain on, like, say if you had a rock buggy and you are parking it somewhere temporarily or even on your trailer because, we're missing that. Let's talk about that briefly.
Trailer security.
Security. They have hitches that slide in, or ball hitches that go up in them, and they lock it so somebody can't put it onto another one.
I've seen that, yeah.
But those can be pryable out, or somebody can grab something with some chains and move it. Mm-hmm. One of the easiest things to do with a trailer is run a chain between, especially a dual axle trailer, run it between the front and the rear wheels. Huh. Put it through the spokes of the wheels, lock them together, try to drag that down the road. Don't forget. Don't forget. Yeah. So that's another way you can do it. But lots of interesting ways to do it. Dad. Sky's
the limit.
Yeah, Dad's passing kind of made me think about security a little bit. So
absolutely
is what it is. I see producer Andrew telling us that it's probably time to start moving towards our after show, the end of the trail, which you can only access through Patreon. Go to patreon.com, look up Wheelin'. We're on there. That is the best way to get into the after show. We have a lot of fun there. So I would definitely check that out if you can. John, what else you got?
Well, I think I've got just about everything here.
Do you?
So, do you think we're good right here?
What the heck? Let's do it.
Well, I just one thing I want to say from myself personally, my family, producer Andrew, and I'm sure anybody else, our sincerest condolences to you and your family. And, best wishes through this tough time.
I really appreciate that. Dad's going to be missed a lot. I know
by many, many people.
I know he'd be proud that we're doing this today still, and that we didn't just take a week off or something like that. I am going to say this on the podcast. If you knew, because I know we have a lot of people that listen to the podcast that knew the family and they knew the businesses. If that's the case, we do have a celebration of life ceremony. I'm not going to give the address over the podcast, but if you can contact me through Wheelin', or even Johnny Orange through Wheelin', and we can give you the details if it's something that you feel that you would like to go to say your final goodbyes on October 12th, which would have been Dad's 77th birthday. If you'd like to do that, you do that. I would like to also say, and this is going to be a little bit of a plug, my father was never a send flowers type of guy. And he was not a funeral type of guy. But he was an animal lover like crazy. He loved cats and dogs, especially cats. He just loved cats. And we are asking that if you are interested, or even if you're a listener and you just like to send your condolences, instead of talking to me, send a small donation to the Cat Depot, CATDEPO, DEPOT, catdepot.org, and that is in Sarasota, Florida. It was right down the road from his vacation home, and he would go over there very frequently to pet the cats and to play with them. It's a great cat rescue down there.
That's awesome.
And that is where we would like you to send your love.
Yeah.
Do it for a good cause. He loved the cats down there. Send donations to the catdepot.org. And I think on that note, John, you can do your thing.
Well, thanks for listening, and have a good one, everybody.